Welcome, Broncos. You're listening to Crossing the Alameda, where we reconnect with the Santa Clara University class of 1991 and share the stories, the detours, and adventures that unfolded after our years on the Mission campus. I'm Kari Morin, joining you from Portland, Oregon, and I'm really happy to be here with a group of classmates who make this project genuinely so fun. So before we begin, I want to send a shout out to Mike Klein, who kicked this whole podcast off with AJ first. Then the two of them brought Charles and me into the mix. Mike can't be here today because his daughter is competing in an equestrian event, but we're cheering her on and sending him lots of love. And with me today are my co-hosts. First up is Charles Michelet, whose musical background and thoughtful questions have added so much to these conversations. Charles, how are you today?
I'm great today. We're excited. We got our first snow of the year. Our 1-year-old Bernese Mountain Dog is the happiest he's ever been.
I saw those videos. It looks awesome. And we also have the one and only A.J. Riebli, the best storyteller who helped shape this podcast from the very beginning and keeps us all laughing and on track, honestly. So how are you feeling today, A.J.?
I feel on track, Kari. Heaven forbid. I want to welcome everybody basically also to it's the third week of Advent, by the way. So it's the week of the pink candle. So I just want to remind everybody the pink candle means rejoice. And I'm happy to here to rejoice with everybody here today as we celebrate the third week of Advent. And I'm happy to be part of Crossing the Alameda.
Me too. Yeah, I was very impressed with myself getting my Advent wreath ready on time this year. Sometimes it's like 3 days in. All right. So let's meet today's guest. AJ, would you do the honors?
I am so excited to bring our good friend to the show today, David Zemke. Dave was a comm major at Santa Clara University. He lived a lively second year in Dunn Hall, along with a few of us as well. He spent the last several decades building a strong career in interactive entertainment media. And 4 years ago, Dave decided to move to Lisbon, Portugal. So that's right, the Crossing Alameda show is international, and Dave is live from Portugal today, where he's enjoying his European life and preparing for what he's calling his next third act, which we can't wait to get to. And, Dave's excited to be here and share his successes and the great sunsets with a cocktail from Portugal. And Dave, a.k.a. Doobie, we're going to get into that. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, AJ. You lead me off with such a glowing review. I have to live up to it now, but I appreciate it. It's so good to talk to you guys and to connect in this podcast. And also shout out to Mike Klein, who I would have loved to chat with as well. So nice to talk to you all again.
Well, you guys should get together since you're in Lisbon and he's actually in Madrid right now. So you guys got to figure it out. He is just a hop, skipping away. So maybe you guys can coordinate. But he's been in the UK now for, I think, the better part of 15, 16 years. And his daughter's actually in a horse competition in Madrid this week. So
I've got it on my list now to connect with him over here in Europe. I figured he was in London for a while, but definitely I'll have to connect with him. So
awesome. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Perfect.
Awesome. Fantastic. So Dave, let's go back to campus life and what dorm or living situation? You mentioned Dunn, but what's some fond memories from S?
I think probably what stood out for me living in Dunn sophomore year was, like most college kids, it's the second year. You kind of have figured out campus, you know what's going on. I had a great roommate. I was living with Wade Stoddard at the time, and we just had a good time. We had a good floor of people, a good group of people in the whole building, I should say. And I just remember it being like one of the more enjoyable experiences. You know, we enjoyed it. It was fun. Good people in that place. I can remember if we're talking about crazy moments, I can remember at one point riding a bike down the hallway late night, and that bike lived in the dorm for the next few months until someone else stole it. But I don't know, that was one of them. So, but yeah, Dunn was good. Dunn was fun.
It was fun.
Hey, if you could go back and rewind to one day at SU, like what's the first thing you'd do? Like if you were like thinking back from 4 years, you're like, hey, you know what? If I'm back on that campus, I'm doing X. Like what is that? You know,
you mean if I'm going back to visit now, or if I could rewind to a day in 91?
Yeah, or just something that resonated with you that you'd be like, you know what, I got to go check in on that, or maybe I want to go, go study in the library. I don't think that was really what you want to say, but what's that thing?
I mean, I think if I was going to go back today, I would go back I would love to go back and sit in a couple classes, first of all. I'm a nerd like that. Like, I'd want to go back and sit in a history class or an English class and kind of hear what students are thinking about now. Because 35 years is a long time, man. A lot's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'd probably do that. I'd probably go wander into the comm lab because I know they rebuilt it. And so I don't know about you guys. You remember the old school St. Joseph's Hall was looking pretty ratty after a few years. And so the new comm labs are supposed to be sweet. You know, I bet they'd be pretty cool to see what people are filming these days. I think I'd probably spend a little bit of time wandering in the gardens, probably around sunset, and just watch people because the gardens were always cool. And then I think I'd probably end up with a beer at the hut at the end of the day, you know, just to go hang out. So
Sounds like the perfect
that's what
day.
I'd do. Yeah, it'd be a good day, you know. I'd skip Benson. I don't know. The food wasn't always that great. It's probably gotten better, but you know, come on.
That
Hope
comes
it's
up a
gotten
lot.
better.
It's a little
Yeah.
more shishi now, Dave. It's a little more, you know.
It's probably better. I'm sure
a
it's
little
probably
more
better. So it'd be worth checking it out. So
So you guys all know each other from being comms majors. Did you have a favorite professor or class during your time at Santa Clara, and whether it was in your major or not?
yeah, so I would say probably favorite class was, I think it was TV production too. It was a lot of fun. I think we shot
Cool.
some pretty fun stuff. I remember coming in at one point and like being really behind the ball in one of my productions. I was trying to do this music production show, and I was feeling like I had a few loose parts. And anytime you go into a TV shoot with some loose stuff, stuff's gonna happen, right?
You can say that. It's all right.
Yeah. Well, so thankfully my crew came together and they pulled it off. Like, I had a brilliant people working behind the desk. I was trying to coordinate things and direct it, but somehow it pulled together and I ended up doing okay in that class. But I just remember being super grateful that everybody knew what they were supposed to do. And even when there were a few gaps in production, they pulled it off. So that was amazing to me.
And that was Prevet, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was Prevet. Yeah. You were probably in that class, I think, Charles.
I
know we had a
think we
couple
were in the
classes
class together. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was probably one of my favorite classes. And I remember loving that too, because like when other times when people were trying to study or do finals, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to go to TV production, you know, and like we go shoot stuff all day. And so it's pretty fun to be hands on. I think one of my favorite teachers was actually Father Sukup. And we were in a journalism class. He was teaching journalism, and I learned a couple great things in that class. One was the nature of writing short brevity and writing with brevity and clarity, but also like writing headlines, right? It's just becomes something you use throughout life. The other thing that Father Sukup taught us was to read between the lines. And so especially with media these days, I mean, there's a lot of mistrust with media. I don't want to go deep on that, but what I learned was like, there's always another side to every story. And so that blew my mind then. And even as I kept going and traveling through the world later in life, I would sort of see these things and realize, I remember what Father Sukup was talking about. And a couple of times I even clipped news articles and sent them to him and was like, do you remember this? Like, you talked about this, but now there's a whole different angle. And he actually wrote me back.
That's so
It was pretty cool. Yeah, he
That's
was a
amazing.
favorite.
That
That's so
It
cool.
sounds like I mean, I had a lot of friends that were studying with you guys, and I just remember hearing a lot about what you're just talking about, and it sounds like early signs of media literacy, which is cool and gives me hope.
Yeah,
It's great.
there's definitely hope for it. He was an awesome teacher. And I mean, the other one who stood out for me, I don't know if you guys ever experienced Father Shanks.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh
Tom
yeah,
Shanks.
I remember
Father
who he
Shanks
Yeah.
is
was. I
amazing.
didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was awesome. He was my advisor, and I'll never forget. There was a piece of advice he gave me. At one point, I came in, and I had just gone overseas on semester at sea. I'd taken some time off and traveled. I was actually with Tim Dooling, Santa Clara alum as well. But I came back, and that whole experience, I think, changed me in terms of seeing the world. And I got a note from the Santa Clara registrar saying, "We're not sure we can take your credits. Like these might not transfer." And there was a big sort of like slow down. So I go in to see Father Shanks, right? And he hadn't seen me for about probably 9 months to a year. He sits down and he's like, okay, so what's going on? And we start talking about it. And he starts asking me questions about my experience traveling. And the best thing about Father Shanks was he didn't really care about the grades. He just wanted to hear what was going on in my world and what I learned from traveling and how it changed me.
Yeah.
And so like what was supposed to be maybe a 30-minute visit turned into be like an hour and a half. And we talked about travel and life, and I asked him some questions about how he came to Santa Clara and all this stuff. But like, it ended up being this awesome visit And I'll never forget because he said, you know what? It's good. I'll work this out with the registrar. You had an amazing experience. I think it all came through. And I just remember being so grateful that he took the time to really listen. Just an amazing person. And
That's awesome.
yeah, it just changed my perspective on the Jesuits in general. Like, I was just so grateful.
Man,
That's so cool.
he was my advisor too. He's a great guy.
Yeah. Right? I mean, he was so
he always
personable.
spoke with such clarity, right? Like that's what I really liked about Father Shanks. Like there was, it's clear, but I think we talk in the world today about active listening, right? Like that guy I mean, his skill set was active listening, and I think now we 35 years in the future, right? Like that's a buzz phrase. Like you need to practice active listening, and you're like, well, that guy was practicing it every single day, and it's clear, like it resonated with you enough where you're like, and everybody was always thinking about like, I mean, I've raised my hand around. I'm the guilty of like, I got something I got to say. And the best thing is like, I got something I need to hear. Right. So it's that ability to make somebody feel like they're being heard and to process and to think before you speak. And I think that's the beauty of like, what I liked about Shanks is he'd think about it and then he provide some straight level of clarity. And it's amazing. Like he recognized like your semester at sea was like, look, man, those are units, life experience should be counted toward, quote unquote
Yeah.
unit. Right.
He saw the
So,
benefit of it, the world travel. And I think, and more importantly, he saved me some extra credit stuff I would have had to do or take summer school, So it turned out to be a bonus.
that's awesome.
It's awesome.
So Dave, do you have a vivid, crazy memory, something embarrassing perhaps? Doesn't have to be, but just a favorite memory, related or not to your nickname,
Yeah, I was going to say, so the story behind my nickname, Doobie, is that, I mean, I was on the crew team freshman year, which I loved. It was a defining experience at Santa Clara. And I'll never forget walking into the gym and meeting the coach. Coach Jim was his name, and he was this just total badass, wearing like cowboy boots, super tall dude. He looked at me and my friend. I was walking with a guy named Jeff Biddle at the time, and he was like, "You boys look like you could be in the crew team. You're tall enough to do it." And we were like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, come check it out." So we checked it out. And we were like, "Okay, if this guy's as badass as he is, we got to do this." And so we did crew, and started running every morning. Started getting up at 5 a.m., getting out on boats and rowing, and it was a blast. And the nickname came around one time because we went to a party, me and some of the crew guys at the time. And I, of course, imbibed in something probably a little more than I should have, And this guy named Miguel, who I'll never forget, Miguel Barone,
Yeah.
also Santa Clara, just skewered me with the nickname. And he just kept telling me, like, I remember coming to practice the next day. He's like, "Fucking Doobie, Jesus, man, what were you doing the other night?" And that just stuck. And forevermore, that's what people called me on the crew team. And that just kind of spread. And I'll give you the final note on that. So senior year, it's parents' weekend, right? And I'm driving around with my parents somewhere in Santa Clara at parents' weekend, and somebody calls out like, "Hey, Dammy." And I'm just like, oh God, like I can't really wave, right? My parents picked up on it. My dad actually, "So the nickname." I'm like, yeah, I had to explain it to him. But it was truly an embarrassing moment. Anyway, that's how it stuck. That's the story behind it.
All
Like,
right.
I had no idea Miguel gave
love
you
it.
that name. I had no idea.
Yeah,
I just saw Miguel last month. I hung out
you
with him
did.
in Chicago. He's amazing, man. We're gonna definitely have to get him on the show. Like he's still as awesome and creative and hilarious as ever. And that's so funny that he's the one that gave you that moniker, though. That's wild.
Yeah. No, it just stuck. It stuck, and it just propagated till suddenly people would meet people and they'd use that name and that nickname. And I'm like, "Yeah, my name's David." And they're like, "Oh, we didn't know your real name. We were talking about your nickname." To this day, I still see people around, San Francisco when I come back to visit, and they're like, "Hey, Doobie, what's going on?" And I'm like, used to it at this point. So,
Good
That's
stuff.
so
Hilarious.
yeah.
hilarious. And crew, hey, hats off to you for crew, bro. Like I don't know. I look anybody that was doing crew, I used to be like, oh my God, these people are up at 4:30. They're running
I
5 miles to sit in a boat. Like you're running all these miles, yet you're rowing a boat. I get it. I understand. Like, now you go like, yeah, I got my VO max up and like, yeah, like that's what that original kind of setup was. And Did you road crew, or like when you came to Santa Clara, you got picked to be no just
I had no experience. I had no experience in crew. I'd been, in pretty good shape, but like crew just took me to a whole nother level of both running and strength and like endurance. The beauty part of it, and we could never explain this to people, but for some reason, getting up early in the morning and getting out in the water of the El Viso Slough with a bunch of guys in a boat actually turned out to be a lot of fun. And even though it was incredibly hard, um, we had fun doing it. There's one point where we were doing these things called ergonometers, which are these big wind turbines, that are like workout machines, and you had to do what was called like a 5,000-meter erg, I think. And the seniors would make us do it, and it's this incredibly difficult thing to work out on. It's like you're basically pulling till you feel like your arms are going to fall off, right? I mean, it's like painful. And the seniors are screaming at you the whole time while you're doing it because they want you to finish. And I remember that being probably one of the more challenging things we ever had to do. But we did the ergs, and then we managed to get in shape. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I wish I'd kept doing it all through. I only did it freshman year. Sophomore year, I figured out some other things and ended up not doing it. But freshman year was a blast, and I met some great people. And it was good. Good times. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, what about you guys? Who else was in sports, or do you remember those?
No sports
no,
for
it
me.
I
wasn't
mean,
just
Yeah,
intramurals, but that's it.
I remember you were in intramurals. AJ, you were big on rugby, right?
I might have played a few years of rugby.
Yeah, there's a few. I know there's a
I
lot
mean,
of stories hiding in there.
there are a few. There are a few. It was, Miguel actually flopped over from crew and played a little rugby with us in the end,
Right
in the
on.
end stretch. Nah, yeah, I think it's that thing of like, when you're new to a place and, you might have played some sports in school or not, but like, if you want to get out and get community and meet people, I always think that's always a good, club sports was just a great way to meet people, and then you figure out is this for me or not for me. And even if you don't even stick with it, like, to your point, like getting up every morning, getting in a boat with seven other guys and rowing, it's that's a real unifying situation. Like it's crazy. Like you're like, okay. And the guys are sitting there standing over there screaming at you as you're trying to do 5,000 meters on it. That's brutal. But like, I don't know if that's kind of a military type feel, but like at the same time, like it helps build, I think, confidence. I think if there's anything that I got out of playing rugby was by the time I was a senior, my confidence level was through the roof. Like I
Yeah,
went from somebody who didn't know how to play a game, picked up the game, uh, went through some pretty difficult times and situations, and in the end, it serves you well. Like anything that you think, okay, I can see I'm improving, right? I go from really, really shitty to mediocre to, oh, maybe I can really learn something or do something in this game too, you know, having kind of a career. I mean, I had playing a lot of rugby after Santa Clara, but like that feeling of success, that feeling of, self-empowerment and believing in yourself, but also surrounded by others that believe in you is super powerful. And I think that's the thing. So like if you're in a boat with seven other guys, you guys gotta all believe in each other. It's the same as in rugby. Like when you walk in that field, you're one of 15 and your whole goal is to put one guy over, but 15 guys need to be able to make that effort occur. And so I think when you learn what your part is and how to, it's team sports, right? And then, as comm majors, right, we talk about interpersonal communication, interpersonal communication, mass communication, like really at its core, like comms, the ability to communicate with one another, either verbally or non-verbally, can always, when you're all on the same page, as they say,
yeah.
leads to really powerful, outcomes. And I think,
And
I think what's really cool, like what you said is like, you didn't need a lot of, you never sat in a boat before. And you're like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I think that's the thing at college. College is meant to be there to go and try different things and meet different people and get outside your comfort zone. And I think Santa Clara was really good at that, especially because I don't think we were frozen by little, screens in our hands or iPads or like we had to really, if you want to go out and meet somebody, you had to go out and meet somebody. And I think
totally.
that was a, right place, right time. But at the same time, like that's what college should be for. That it's not so
I
always, go, Kari.
Sorry, I was just gonna say this. Right, like when I think about those two sports that you two were talking about, that felt like such communities in and of themselves. You wouldn't need a Greek system right away because I had gone to high school with Al Ramirez, so I knew people on crew. Like, wasn't didn't he row crew? Am I imagining that? No, he
I
did.
believe he did. Yeah.
So I came in as a freshman. I think he was a sophomore, and I remember thinking, God, they look like they already known each other forever. Like it just looked like such a fun community in the crew house, and all those people were always talking about how much they loved what they did, and you have to get up that early. And then the same thing with rugby, and lacrosse, like if Mike Klein was here. So I remember what it wasn't just the soccer team, the basketball team, the football team. Anyone who was involved in a athletic community had an extra special experience, it felt like.
Yeah, the women's shout out to the women's crew team back in the day. Like I see a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
women now rowing crew, but like that was but they were ballers, man. I remember that whole. I mean, I can't. I mean, Dave can speak more to it than I can, but like, I was always like, oh my god, they're such athletes, and the fact that they were out there doing the same as the dudes, getting up, putting it in, and and I actually think the Santa Clara women's crew team did really well when we were there. That's my recollection that they actually had a
Yeah.
really good eight. You know,
They did have a pretty good 8, and I think the other thing about it is it just adds a whole dimension to your educational experience, right? Like, it was just that, like you said, that team building and that whole pushing yourself beyond. Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun way to meet people across different strata of the campus and realize, like, you could connect with upperclassmen and, like, people in different majors. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
so anybody listening, if you got kids going to school, they're freshmen, sophomore, it's even
Totally.
senior year. It's never too late to get involved, meet new people, and
Do a
get
sport.
excited about life. I mean,
Do a
come on.
sport. Do something that interests you and
yeah,
follow it. That's huge. Yeah, I would agree.
absolutely.
So hey, let's fast forward a little bit. I mean, since graduation, tell us what's been happening. I mean, 35 years is a bit of a we don't need the entire epic saga of Dave Zemke, but like tell us, give some highlights and maybe even some lowlights, and some
Sure.
detours that were unexpected. You know,
Yeah.
share with
I
us,
mean,
Dave.
I think God, it's tough to encapsulate. I can't say enough about how Santa Clara prepared me because it really did. But in the same way, it's like life comes at you full speed when you graduate, right? I mean, you remember in 1991, the economy sucked. There weren't a lot of jobs. I was coming out of school with a good degree and was pretty excited about life, but I ended up taking 3 years just to ski and live in Colorado and be a bum for a while, and that's what I did, and it turned out to be the best decision I ever made. So living in Aspen and skied for 3 seasons, and the best part about that, I think, too, is I met my wife while living in the summer in Nantucket, so that was detour number 1. I drove across the country in my little tiny gray Honda and drove onto the island of Nantucket. And everybody looked at me like, who's this dude with like a windsurfer on the roof and like wearing like Birkenstocks and like, they're like totally not East Coast guy, right? I lived with about 4 guys I knew from Colorado, and we shared this house in Nantucket, and it turned out to be an awesome summer. And that's where I met my soon to be, well, my future, my now wife. But that summer turned out to be a major detour and was a blast. And the best part was realizing living for the summer in Nantucket, Charles, as you know, the East Coast is way different than the West Coast, right? It's a whole
Oh
different
yeah.
mindset,
Oh yeah, it really
right?
is.
And so I loved seeing it again and experiencing it. And the summers out there are awesome, but I also was grateful, like, okay, I recognize why I like the West Coast, what I love about California. And it actually prompted me to move back to San Francisco a couple years later. So that was a good detour, worth the trip.
Wow.
What else happened? I worked in entertainment, interactive entertainment, like you said, AJ, for about 22 years. I'm still doing it. My career in gaming started kind of randomly because I was actually working as a production assistant in San Francisco for a couple years after graduation. And I was shooting commercials, working on film shoots, doing sound work, just whatever would pay the rent, right? And at that time, San Francisco still had kind of expensive rent, but I was picking up gigs here and there, trying to figure out what to do. And I started to get interested in computers and technology as like telling stories through that. And it led me into gaming. And I'd played games in college, but never really that seriously. And I met a guy at a party, and we started talking about it. I was really grilling him at the party about, like, how do you do this? Or how do you do these certain things? And there's a guy named Hunter, really cool dude. Turns out he worked at a company called Electronic Arts. At the end of like 2 hours of me just grilling him in the kitchen of this party, he's like, you should come work for us, man. We need some people in QA. So I took a job. I drove down like the next week, interviewed, and I got a job at EA, my first real job. I got a paycheck. It was like crazy. And within the first week of working there, the marketing team asked me to come help them with the sales meeting. So I ended up going to the sales meeting, and I had to learn to play all the games and talk about them. And actually, that's kind of harder to do than you think. It sounds stupid, but I was talking about these games and learning about them and playing them. And at the end of the week, the sales team and the marketing team were so happy. The head of marketing pulled me aside and she said, you got to come work for us. I was like, why? What should I be doing? She's like, well, you can talk about games, most importantly. And secondly, you're really good and at speaking and you're good at enunciating. And she's like, I just think you should come work for us. And so I went to the QA guys. I'm like, what should I do? I don't know. Like, like, go work in marketing, dude. Go work in marketing. Seriously,
Later.
like, you're going to have a much different career path. And so that set off 22 years of working in marketing for companies like EA, Sega, Capcom. I worked at LucasArts for a number of years. I worked for the Force, which was pretty fun. Yeah, and some amazing experiences doing that. Yeah, that was kind of one of those crazy detours in life. Yeah, fast forward now, to get you up to speed, I guess the whole Portugal thing came about because I was working for a game company here in Europe, and I was flying back and forth from California to Lithuania. And it's like a brutally long 11 or 12-hour flight. And they eventually said, would you want to come live in Europe? And I was like, yeah, I think that'd be cool. Like, I would dig that. My wife and I had talked about it. So we talked about it as a family, and we had this discussion and sat around the table. And my young daughter at the time was 15. She's like, we should do it. We should do it. You guys have been talking about this for a while, and we really think you should do it. And she was the one who like pushed the button. And so we said, all right. So that night, like I wired like a deposit of money for a school in Portugal. We were talking about Portugal and looking at different places. And 6 weeks later, we had packed up our house in San Rafael and we were out the door. It was like the craziest, most extreme journey that I probably could have made in that short a time. We originally thought it would just be a year. And at the end of that year, we sat down as a family again and thought, okay, let's talk about this. Do we want to stay? And my daughter was the one who spoke up and was like, yeah, I want to stay. Like, if we want to stay, I'm like, that means you're going to have to graduate from high school here. And so she did. She graduated from a private high school here in Lisbon, and she's now going to school in upstate New York. And we're still here. We just figured we'd stick around in Europe. So crazy detours like that, but they happen so fast, with big changes. So
Right.
Oh,
That's great.
I guess the lesson is just never be afraid of change, right? If you look at those things
amazing.
down, yeah, you can do them. So
Always remembers like someone really wise said to me, what would you regret not doing? Right. And that feels like what a cool yes that you had and that your daughter was the one who wanted to do it. Because so often those kind of things people resist because they don't want to disrupt their kids.
Right.
That's
oh,
awesome.
she was
So
a
what's
big
life like?
push. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah.
What is life like for you now? Like, what's your daily life look like in Portugal now?
I mean, daily life is interesting here. Right now, I'm actually currently in between gigs. I just finished a contract gig. I've been doing some freelance work while I'm here. I was helping produce a couple mobile games for a company in San Francisco. But right now, being a little bit unemployed, and just doing consulting on the side, it's a nice life here. I typically get up early and do some exercise. I go for a run. I go on a bike. Lately, I've been having a lot of fun going to this strength conditioning class on the beach here in Portugal, which is all taught in Portuguese. So
That's cool.
I've been learning the language. Yeah, definitely. Eu falo português, mais ou menos. I've been just networking and talking to people here inside Lisbon in the tech industry and the game industry and spending time going in and going to events here. And then networking with people back in the US and keeping up contacts there. And then like when I can, when the weather's nice, I'll try to take a break during the midday and I go for a swim in the ocean. The water is beautiful here in Portugal and it's cold right now, but it's beautiful. And then, I try like to wrap up my day with something more productive or fun, like working with my hands, like cooking, is a big thing right
Mm.
now. So,
Great.
yeah, that's generally how a day flows, but it's pretty good living over here. So
Sounds great. Oh my God.
Yes. That
So
sounds
you
fabulous.
tapped into like what's the expat situation over there? I'm just curious. Like I know that Portugal, like when COVID came down, right? Like a lot of, I know a lot of people made
Yeah, me too.
the move, right, to Portugal, whether, they're living in the Algarve or they're in Lisbon. Like it seems like there was a big like expat push. I mean, did you see that happen? I mean, you were part of it, but like, were you aware that that was going on at the time?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, definitely, I'm connected more with expats than I probably am with. I have some Portuguese friends, but more expat friends, I guess. And there's definitely been a big push. I think, particularly coming from America, like it hit the news really around the end of the pandemic and a couple years after. And the surprising thing is that when you look at the data, the number of people, Americans that have come over to Portugal probably is somewhere in the number of around like maybe 15, 20,000. And keeping in mind that Portugal is a country of about 11 million people, the biggest number of expats really comes from Brazil, something like maybe 500,000 or more. And then people from Angola and Mozambique, that's also a big former Portuguese colonies. There's a lot of people coming from there. Americans are somewhere down around maybe the eighth or ninth, I think. But there are a lot of expats. I met a lot of people from Hong Kong, a lot of really cool people from the Netherlands, awesome people from the Netherlands, some good friends from Austria, some good friends from the UK. So there's a big mix. It's a cool, like you said, Portugal definitely has a cool mix of people. And I think the Portuguese have been pretty gracious about letting us come to stay in their country. So that's been fun.
That's cool.
Nice. Awesome. I'm so glad you brought up the challenge of graduating in the year we graduated, because it was very difficult for a lot of people. AJ and I and Kari, we all talked about it. There were very few jobs, and I love the story of your journey. Is there like a particular obstacle or challenge that you experienced that time that you're most proud of? I mean, I think certainly we touched on a couple about the, moving to Portugal and things like that. But what are you most proud of?
I think if I had to think about moments that were fun, I mean, I had some pretty amazing times working in the game industry. I'll give you the super geek out moment. At one point, I was working for LucasArts, and I was working on some Star Wars games. And one of the benefits was going to work on these 2 commercials that we shot with ILM. Being a film production major like ILM was like, they're gods, right? Those guys make stuff happen. And so they shot these commercials with us, and I remember going to the set, and there's a big tray of lightsabers sitting there as we were using as props. And I'm like, I went to one of the guys, I'm like, can I pick one of those up? He's like, yeah, man, go for it. I'm like, the 9-year-old kid in me was like, I'm holding a lightsaber. Like, this is amazing, right? This is a totally movie moment. And then we shot something with Boba Fett's, Jango Fett's helmet, the like metallic bounty hunter helmet. It was the real helmet, and we got to put it on. I'm like, okay, this is kind of a nerdy moment, but pretty cool. And then the last part, I think, was going to mix. I did a cinema ad where we took one of the spots we built and we blew it up to 35 millimeter and mixed it at Skywalker Sound. And we're sitting in this editing room, and the guy says to me, he's like, yeah, so what do you think? He's playing it back. It's like full Dolby 5.1 mix. I'm like, how do I like even comment on this? Like, the guy's so good at what he's doing. Maybe a little more lightsaber, so he bumps it up, on the sound thing and replays it. And what I come to learn later is we're sitting in, this is George Lucas's private editing suite that we're doing this in. I'm just like total crazy moment of like, how did I get here of all things? Like, what am I doing? So those are some fun moments in my career. But I think probably the biggest challenge I'd faced since graduation was just knowing that, there's been definitely points in my life where I've gone through some ups and downs, like being unemployed around the pandemic was really hard. I went for a few months there and was not finding work. And I think just having the resolve and knowing that we've all got the skills built in us. We just got to remember to keep on top of them and adapt and change, and I think the pandemic really was tough for that. I'd say the other part that was hard, and this is more of a personal thing, but I'll share with you guys, is losing both my parents in my 30s was tough. My dad passed away.
Right.
No worries. I mean, they were both big parts of my life, but my dad passed away right after I was married, which was tough. And my mom passed away a few years later when I was 39. And I was grateful that she got to hold my daughter when she was born. So those things were, personal things, but those were hard. I think the other challenge I'm still facing now as living in Europe, we talk about some of the good things, but I think the hardest thing is missing family and friends. and it just takes work to build a new group of friends and a new set of contacts professionally. And also to remember that you got to maintain the relationships across the ocean. Now, that's why it's so awesome to talk to you
Yeah,
guys again and to stay in touch. So
it's
I'm always
awesome.
grateful to bump into people here in Portugal. And yeah, if anyone's coming to Lisbon, look me up.
For sure, for sure.
Mm,
All right.
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, lots of challenges, lots of changes.
Do you ever run into any SU people in Portugal?
I haven't bumped into anyone off the streets, but I've definitely given my share of travel advice and connections and
Yeah.
places to visit. Several people have contacted me on Facebook and been like, "Hey, you're over there," and I'm like, "Tell me what you want to do, or tell me if you're going to come visit." Like I've met up with some people for dinner and things like that. That part is awesome. I love it when people come to see Lisbon and they get to see this city. It's a pretty amazing place.
Hey, have you been down to have you gone and seen the 100-foot waves at Nazaré? Have you been down and done that yet?
Yeah, and I will say
'Cause
they're incredible.
It's going off this weekend, right? Like, did they go
Yeah,
off this weekend? Yeah.
we're gonna go, I think, next week. I think actually Tuesday it's supposed to be some pretty big waves. I tell you this, it's jaw-dropping to watch them, and it's almost stressful because the last time I went with my wife, we were sitting on the cliffs and we were watching these waves, and you see these big giant waves come in and you realize like they look massive, right? But then you start to see the scale of how big they are, and then you see like this little speck of a guy surfing down the face of this wave, and you're just like clutching, yourself going, is he going to make it? Right. And he just whips down the face of this wave and this thing crashes over. And then like the guy comes in on the jet ski to pull him out of the water. And it's insane. I mean, they are truly some of the most I would say, insanely challenging and I would say fearful waves I've ever seen. Like the ocean is not to be
Yeah,
trifled with,
totally.
So yeah.
Yeah, big
If
wave
you,
surfing is amazing.
yeah, I would agree. Those guys are nuts. I've been in the waves here and surfed, and even when they get above a certain level, I'm like out of the water. I mean, they can pound you hard. So
Yeah,
the ocean is not to be messed with, but it's fun. It's definitely fun.
It is fun.
Yeah. So I would say it's worth doing. I mean, I think it's worth seeing Nazaré. I think the other parts of Portugal that stand out for me are Lisbon's a great city. Porto is pretty cool. If you can make it to the wine country up north in Douro, it's incredible. And Portuguese wines, don't tell anyone, but they're some of the most unsung favorites of Europe. They're awesome.
I agree.
Yeah, the food's great and the people are super friendly. The Portuguese are nice people. So yeah,
Mm.
it's worth checking out.
Yep, my son is dating someone who has dual citizenship because her mom's from there, and every time she comes back from there, she brings Portuguese wine for us, and it's so good. We love it.
Cool. Good. Right
Absolutely love
on.
it.
Okay.
From
Right
her
on.
mom's from some tiny village, so when she goes there, like the entire village is like, "You're here." It's really cute.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. If you could go back and give your Santa Clara self one piece of advice, what would it be?
It's really interesting you say that. And you ask me that right now because it's funny when AJ reached out to me about this, I was going through some old photos and I looked through a picture that my dad had given me. I was going through some pictures and there was one of graduation day at Santa Clara. And that was probably one of the happiest days of my life. I don't know why I mean, I love Santa Clara, but it was just one of those days like really powerful and emotional and moving. And then I saw the note from AJ. I'm like, oh yeah, I think I want to do this. If I could go back and tell myself something then, wow, I think the first thing would just be to remember to be curious, to follow your instincts and your dreams. Don't let go of them for anything or anyone. Don't let fear get in the way of trying new things because we all know fear is one of those things that can stop a lot of stuff happening. And if you lean into it instead and be curious, you can find out why. And it really helps you open up new doors. I think the second thing I would tell myself is do not let any kind of petty stuff get in the way of big stuff. It's far too easy to get hung up on details or minor scrapes or something. And instead just kind of step back, be ready to forgive, say you're sorry, but most importantly, like nurture the relationships you have in life because that's what keeps you going.
Yeah.
And the best thing my dad, or I forget who told me, someone said, when they go write in your gravestone, they're not going to write about where you worked. They're going to write who you were, right? So,
Right.
and I think that's probably the two things I would say. I think if I was going to tell anyone anything about Santa Clara, I would look back and say that we were lucky that we went there at a good time. It was a gift. We were lucky to go to a great school and be taught by some awesome professors. We make great friends. And we were in one of the best places in the world to do it, Northern California is a pretty fantastic place to be. I always look back and I treasure my time there. And I don't think I would say anything myself at graduation, but I think it's been nice to reconnect with this audience and people from Santa Clara through life and realize how lucky we were, So
That's awesome. It's funny,
yeah,
like a common theme of all the people we talk with. It's kind of like along the way, they've had to dig deep into themselves at certain times in their lives and find, an inner strength. Has there been anything that you did that kind of surprised you? That kind of like, oh, I didn't know I had that in me. That you brought from Santa Clara that you like, that you can connect with and say, oh my. I'm glad I could find that within myself to get through this thing.
Yeah, that's a great question, Charles. I mean, gosh, I think about so much of what happened at Santa Clara, I think shaped me as a person. I think one thing that stands out for me is just knowing that there's always a little bit of reserve in the tank, a little bit of strength. And I can chalk it up to a couple of things. One was probably doing crew and realizing like even when I thought I had very little strength left when we were on some gnarly run or doing the ergs, you can still go. There's always something left that to push you just that over the edge. And that was something that came through at Santa Clara. I think, one of the other things I can remember some late nights just being at the end of my attention span or whatever, like working on some late editing projects and being like, I can't finish this until it's done. And I got to get it done. And tonight's the night to do it. And you just got to power through it. So doing that and having that sort of little bit of gas in the tank and knowing that you're not going to give up is crucial. Yeah, I think the other thing I would say the surprising thing I've discovered is that I can adapt to change. And Santa Clara probably prepared me for that too, because there was a lot of changes happening. But yeah, that we're all flexible in some form. So
Awesome.
yeah, I'm
Nice.
curious
Yeah.
about you guys. What still stands out for you 35 years later? What do you see as your like moment of definition from some of the stuff you learned at Santa Clara?
Oh man, I mean, I think it was for me quickly. It was definitely the instructors, the professors there that were just so interested in us and as people. As you said with Father Shanks, it's kind of like forget about this. What's happening with you? And that's something that's so valuable. It's kind of like and you get to like believe in yourself. And it's kind of like and it's like the people I met. I mean, the beautiful surroundings. It's quickly. I went back for the 25th anniversary.
Right on.
And our 25th reunion. And I was struck just how emotional it made me to walk back into some of those buildings. And it brought me back. It brought me back. And I was like, oh my God, this was such an important point in my life, and it was great to like just steep myself in that again and say,
Definitely.
these people I remember, and a lot of things that I hadn't thought about in 25 years just came rushing back. And I was like, oh my God, this was such an important time that shaped me as a person. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Totally. Agreed. 100%. I remember walking back to the gardens again and being like, I remember when this was the width of my world at this point, right? The campus was what I lived in, and that was kind of our 6 or 7 block radius of all the stuff we did, and then realizing it was such a massive world for us at the time. But then when we graduated, it got even bigger, but still coming back to that little place and making it such a vital part of growing up, so it's pretty magical. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, I would just say quickly that I went to JVC because of, job market. I did JVC. And I think what stuck with me from Santa Clara that was emphasized through that experience working in inner city DC, and then ever since then in my career, is just what to do with that privilege and that education, and the impact you can have. I learned so much at Santa Clara and from my classmates and from the Jesuits who, used to do the work that they had us do as volunteers in San Jose. So it made a huge impact. And in my life, like I lost my father too, and just Your answer about staying curious made me emotional because it just kind of brought me back to that time. Like everything that came from that education, and my brother and sister went there too, is stay curious. Like always know. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Definitely,
So
right? And
true.
just
Yeah.
ask the question, right? Ask the question about what the world's bringing to you and like, what can I learn from this? You know,
Yeah.
I didn't know you
Yeah.
did JVC in DC. That's incredible.
How great
Awesome.
is that?
I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very cool. It's
Yeah.
cool. Cool experience.
Awesome.
I'm going to tell you right now, I think the thing that has paid dividends that when I was there, didn't think of it as a dividend was having to do a year of ethics, having to walk out the argument on both sides. You had to defend positions that you probably internally disagreed with. And I think what that taught you on some level, once again, it's the Jesuits are pretty sneaky, right? You're you're actually you're actually learning empathy, right? I think that is at its core extremely important, right? And I think when you're at the school and you're like, oh, what's ethics what's ethics in communication, or what's ethics in society, or ethics in medicine, or in this day and age, it could be ethics in technology, right? Like, but what I think that kind of guiding principle of just walking out the argument on both sides, like exercising both sides of your brain to some kind of empathetic outcome, or I don't want to say the world's very gray, right? But like there is some black and white to feeling out what the right side of the outcome is that you want to be on, and I think it fights against, sometimes your brain fights your emotions, right? And I think it's really critical to be able to practice rational thinking and to walk the steps out and go, okay, I think Dave, you brought up a little earlier, is like talking about like, read between the lines, right? Like the year of ethics to me was so mission critical, I think, to future success in life for me. Like I think about that all the time. And I think, man, why do I have to take this required year? Right. And that required year from my standpoint was it's just been an insanely great year that now I fall back on all the time and go, okay, I need to understand where somebody else is coming from, you know?
Nice.
And I
Well,
think
I think
that's the power of that you don't realize that it's happening, and you're 19 or you're 18 and you still don't really understand who you are. And then you're like talking about euthanasia, or talking about abortion, or talking about things that are super heavy hitting and have, social repercussions. And it's that ability to be like, where do I fit in this and how do I feel about it? And, you know, I
totally.
still grapple. I mean, I still grapple to this day, but like you got to walk in somebody else's shoes, even if they don't fit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think the Jesuits were, you nailed it both, Kari and A.J. I think about how the Jesuits framed us in some ways to look at both sides of the issue and also to live a life of service. I think like there's some privilege there, and that's carried me as well, and stuff I've done past graduation. The ability to look at things from both angles and really understand it was something that the Jesuits instilled in us. And I also think that like we can make the world a better place. That's something they were also pretty strong on, right? And I think back to the things going on campus then. Like I remember at one point there were these protests around the priests who were murdered in El Salvador, and they had
Yeah.
Oh,
crosses up
yeah.
on the in front of the mission, and they were starting to educate us a lot on how those priests were definitely walking the walk and what they were doing and believed in the things they were doing. It was huge. It was kind of monumental. And then I think the stuff we did, I did some projects both in the comm group within the area of San Jose and then after graduation around service that just made a meaningful impact, And it's what we're here to do, try to make a world a better place. And the Jesuits did that to a lot of levels. So it's
Right on.
impressive. Yeah, very impressive. So I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
All
Ooh,
right.
Sure
Hey,
to
yeah.
do that.
How are we on
we're going to
time? Are
move
we going
off
over?
of,
Sorry.
no. I think, man, that was a good bit.
That
Thank you,
was.
all of you. Actually, I really appreciate I think that's also, look, that was a perfect example of like, we all went to the same school and we all had, I think, really kind of, formational experiences that were separate of each other. I think that's also the beauty of Charles and I were, we did a show yesterday and with Holly Rollo, and we were talking about the homogenized, like, I'm not big on homogenized thinking. Like, I think you need to have, Dave, we know this from entertainment, right? You have to have conflict, right? You can't have everybody going, that's the same story or that's the same idea. Like you have to have people presenting the entire 360 because otherwise it's flat. It's not in 3D, right? And I think that it's so important to be able to have a group of people that can have different opinions, but at the same time be empathetic and love and understand one another in a because we're all human beings. I think we forget sometimes.
Yeah.
I think we're in the kind of this world right now where we forget that we have more in common than we don't. And I think
Yeah.
the
And
don'ts
being
have become
open.
so polarizing that they're really choking out the commonality. And I think, I just think that that's something where, and I'm blessed. I think we're blessed that we did go to a place that kind of taught, I guess you want to call it liberation theology on some level, but like what I always love about the Jesuits is like they never shame you for being an earner. They're like, it's okay to be an earner and to lead a good life, but don't forget to do good work. And I think that's the beauty. Like you can have a good life on whatever that definition of good life is, but also like at your core, you have to believe in social justice. You have to believe in people's ability to read and write and empower people so that they're not being taken advantage of. And I think it's inherent upon us to kind of take that to our families and take that to our communities. And I think that's the jam. Like that's the secret sauce, I think, of what I think we were kind of blessed time and place to have those experiences. And so I'm off my soapbox
Good.
now, but
Well put,
Oh, yeah,
though, man. Well put. Sorry, go
Charles,
ahead.
I know you got to hop. Should we
I
get
just,
into the
just
Fast Five real
let's get
quick?
into it. Yeah. I
sure.
think, yeah,
I
let's
just sent
do
a
it.
text to see if I can squeeze out a little bit more.
Okay. Okay.
So Dave. We do a thing here called the fun and fast five. It's a genius idea that Kari and kind of Mike kind of came up with, and we think it's kind of fun. So we're going to ask you 5 questions. They're off the top. We're putting you on the spot, and just give us your just in the moment response. So what do we
Okay.
got, Kari?
So, Dave, if you could have coffee with any historical figure, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
I don't know, probably John F. Kennedy would be a pretty interesting dude to sit down and chat with, right? Like the whole profiles and courage thing. I went to that museum a
Absolutely.
couple years ago and thought he'd be a pretty interesting character. So
That's a good
Awesome.
answer. I love
Good
how
answer.
everyone just says something different.
Okay, Dave. What's something you're currently binge watching or reading?
binge watching. I've been stuck right now on some of the stuff on Apple TV. I've been watching The Morning Show. Surprisingly good for the first 3 seasons. I'm not on season 4 yet. And I just finished an awesome book called The Wild Coast, I think by Charlotte McConaughey, which just blew my mind.
Oh, right.
Really, really good book.
Excellent suggestions.
Hey,
I
what's
think we
your
need a reading list.
yeah? There's some good books out there. There's some stuff to read if we find time to
Goodreads is
read.
awesome if you like that. But if you want any recommendations, Kari, let me know. Shoot me a note. I'll send you some good stuff.
Okay.
Excellent.
Hey, what's your go-to comfort food?
But for me, it's Mexican food, man. I mean, a good tacos or burritos. When I come back to California, send me to the taco truck. Send me to La Taqueria in San Francisco. I want a big carne asada burrito. I mean, Portuguese food is amazing, but they don't have. We've got okay Mexican food, but I'll take really good mission style burrito any day of the week. Love it.
Solid choice. Solid choice.
Cool.
Nice.
Okay. So, if you hadn't been on this career path that you've been on, what's a totally different career path, like in an alternate universe, you could see yourself in or have thought, just fantasized about?
Its skill set doesn't matter. It could be anything. You don't need
Yeah.
the skill set.
Right.
Just what would be that thing?
I think there's probably 2 things I would have liked to have done. Maybe one of them I could still do. One would be, I think being a teacher would have been interesting. Would have enjoyed that. And the second thing would have been a baker. I probably would have buried myself in some back room Parisian bakery and learned to make baguettes and like gotten arm deep in dough and figured out how to make croissants. Would have
Man,
been
Ooh,
nice.
something fun. Yeah,
Oh,
those 2.
fantastic. All right, bonus question. Please give us a song to add to our class of 1991 playlist.
Yes. So the one for me I'm going to put on is called Untitled by REM. It's off the Green album. And it's just one of those songs. I even heard it today and it just rocked my world, but the lyrics were relevant to that time. So add that to the list if it's not on there. That's a good one.
For sure.
And I love that you're doing a playlist. This is fantastic.
But yeah, I was thinking we need a book recommendation list and a playlist. This is going to be awesome.
And,
Oh,
and a
yeah.
TV or movie binge list.
Yeah, we're
Totally.
Yeah, exactly.
getting great stuff here. We're getting great suggestions.
All right. So as we wrap up, and thank you so much for your time, what are you looking forward to in the coming year?
Oh, I'm actually looking forward to going to this reunion, believe it or not. Like it was kind of
Great
on my
answer.
radar, but
Awesome.
I'm stoked to go. So I'm trying to set aside some funds and get ready for a trip back, because coming from Portugal is a big thing. So don't count me out yet. I got some stuff to work on, but I'd like to be for that. The thing I'm looking forward to most this year is my I'm having a big family wedding. One of my nephews is getting married, and it's the first wedding of the next generation of Zemke kids. And so we're fired up,
Cool.
man. Like it's so exciting to get together. And I think it's one of those moments
So
when you can
fun.
get, the whole family together and celebrate something. That's just, to me, it's just the icing on the cake right there. So I'm looking forward to that.
Where's that going
gotta-
to be?
Yeah,
It's
where's the
going to be in
meeting?
Colorado. Yeah, it's going to be in Colorado.
Okay,
Kara, yeah.
okay.
Sorry,
Beautiful.
go ahead, AJ. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, Dave. Hopefully, you're gonna make the reunion, but you got a message you want to send out to the class of '91 or the actual bigger Bronco community? Parting shot, Von Mott.
Just keep on living, man. I guess I got to go to the whole Matthew McConaughey thing, but like, enjoy it. Spend time loving life, and don't let the fears get you down. Get into the stuff and be curious. That would be my thing, is stick to that. So,
Oh my God. Dave, this has been so fantastic talking to you. It's been so great to reconnect. I honestly have not seen you since graduation.
Charles,
I would love to exchange information so we can talk offline sometime. I just want to thank you so much for making the time to come and talk to us.
I feel the same way, Charles. I
Yeah.
was so stoked to see your name on the thing, and I realized we hadn't talked since graduation, so I appreciate that. Thank you. And Kari, yes, also, we have not talked since graduation. I'm so glad to reconnect.
And I know. Same. It's been really fun hearing about your journey. If you ever listen to these other ones that we've recorded, we're always thinking about our kids because we're in a similarly hard time to look for a job. And just your story is so inspiring. I really want my adult young men to hear it. So thank you so much.
Yes.
It's okay to
Lovely.
take the time, Dave. I think that's what I didn't realize you jammed off
Yeah.
to Aspen for 3 years. I ran away to Calgary, Alberta for 3 years. So I know exactly how bad it was in '91. And we all make choices. You can sit around and cry about it, or you can go out and live. And I think that was
Absolutely.
a driving force, right? And you're not in anybody, at that point, we're not in anybody else's timetable. Your parents may want you out of their house or off their bankroll, but like, you're on your own path, man. And like, sometimes it just takes more time to bake and find where you need to go. And those detours sometimes are absolutely life-changing. And they for me, for you, it resonates for me. The fact that you end up in Nantucket, it's just, look, man, you're on your own timetable, and I think that's okay.
Life
As
is a
long as your mom
journey.
and
So
dad,
cool.
as long as you got support and love, it's always going to be. And even if you don't, there's that ability to believe in yourself and make things work.
Well, I think, and one thing I'll add to that, and Kara, you brought this up as well, is as we raise kids, and I'm not sure how many of us all have kids, but as we raise the next generation, like, it's important to remember the things that we felt at that age. Like, I can remember, take me back to graduation, a couple days after graduation in Santa Clara, and sitting down at the table, and I think it was someone's house, maybe Shannon or Gigi's, and we were all talking about where we were going, and all of a sudden I was kind of like, I don't really know what I'm doing, right? Like, kind of have
Yeah.
this vague idea of going to Colorado, but like, who knows, right? And that's what set me off. I just packed out my little Honda Civic and drove east, and that was it. And now, as we have kids who are raising these young adults, to remember what it was like to be that fearful then and be kind of scared about the future, but also to realize, like, the world is your oyster. You open up the door. Where are you going to go?
Oh,
It's part of the fun, right? Like, this is the journey that you start on.
so
Having
true.
that is just a gift in of itself, So
Mm.
who knows? We'll see where they
Fantastic.
end up.
All right.
You are where you need to be, right? I think that's the thing.
Yes,
And if you can
totally.
be
Yeah.
comfortable in just being, and it's all right.
Yep.
But it takes a lot to get to that point, right? Where you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm cool, I'm all right.
It's having faith
Yeah.
and trusting in yourself and knowing that whatever decision you make will not be a wrong one. It'll just be a decision, and you're going to get there.
Yeah.
So true.
So, hey, to all our listeners, we want to thank everybody for joining us. David Zemke, thank you so much for being on this episode of Crossing the the Alameda. If you want to suggest a guest or you want to share a memory or join us on the podcast, email us at crossingalameda@gmail.com. That's crossing Alameda, ALAMEDA @gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Go Broncos. God bless everybody. Love you, Dave. Happy Merry Holiday Christmas season, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it Christmas season, event season. And thank you so much for joining us today on Crossing the Alameda. Love you, and hopefully we see you next year at the
Thank you,
reunion.
guys.
Thanks
Thank
so
you
Charles
all
much.
so
Carey,
much.
you're the best. Thank you.
I
Thank you.
enjoyed
Thank
this so
you.
much. Thank you all. I
It was
appreciate
so
it, Charles,
fun.
Kari, and
Right.
A.J. It was a blast to talk to you guys. And I feel like we did
It was
cross the
so great.
Alameda today. It was awesome.
Yeah, totally.
So
Thank you. It was really fun.